Hello everyone and welcome to our Getting Started with N-Central APIs masterclass with myself, Paul Kelly. Before we go any further, just want to make sure that you can both see my screen and hear me. So maybe if someone can acknowledge that. Thanks, Andrew. Thanks, Albert. Perfect. Okay, guys. So this content may contain forward-looking statements regarding future product lines. The efforts, basically, this is our little message from our legal team here. If I talk about any roadmap features here today, there's no commitment from Enable to deliver with any certain time frames as such. If you're joining us on our first masterclass, guys, just some general housekeeping. All attendees are muted. Please use the questions pane of GoToWebinar to ask questions, and feel free to do so at any time. I'll do my best to answer them as I go through the session today as well. If you are having any audio or visual issues, please let me know via the questions pane. Just start shouting in there. And just so you're aware, the session is recorded. I think we will be sending you a recording of this session post its completion in a couple of days, if not weeks as well. Now, normally I like to have my camera on, but recent experiences with the camera has caused for a bit of screen lag and issues as such. So we're going to dispense of the camera today, just have my dulcet tones instead. If you're wondering what I look like, this is myself pondering life. My name is Paul Kelly. I'm a head nerd here at Enable. Working with Enable now coming up on 10 years, initially as part of the sales engineering team, and then for the last 3 years now as part of the head nerd team as well. My focus on the team tends to be around automation, patching, security across the N-Central platform. But like all the head nerds, I try and keep my finger in all the pies, as we like to say as well. My virtual door, guys, is always open. So if you have any kind of follow-up questions, anything we talk about today, for example, or if you just have questions in general, feel free to drop me an email at paul.kelly@n-able.com. And I'll do my very best to answer them for you. Or if not, I'll find someone who can answer the questions for you. And if you just want to keep up to date with what I and the rest of the head nerds are up to, make sure you connect with me on LinkedIn. So you'll find me at Head Nerd Paul, or if you just search up Paul Kelly Enable, I'm sure I'll pop up there as well. Now, before we get stuck into the content today, guys, I do want to bring your attention to just some events and things that are coming up. So if you want to grab your smartphones quickly or take a screenshot, you can grab a few QR codes here. First of all, we'd love for you to share your insights on the Enable N-Central platform. So if you scan the QR code that you see on screen here, leave a review on the G2 website, you will receive an Amazon gift card to the value of $25 US. If anyone misses any of these QR codes, please let me know and I'll be happy to bring them up at the end as well. Also, guys, we spend an awful lot of time each month writing content that we think will benefit you. So if you want to make sure you never miss another Head Nerd blog again, you can sign the QR code on screen here. This will sign you up to the Head Nerd blog newsletter, where all the newest Head Nerd blogs will be delivered directly to your inbox. So we have over 750 people now registered to receive this blog, which is great. So if you're not on that list just yet, guys, I highly encourage you to scan the QR code and you'll get all the latest and greatest content that myself and the other head nerds produce delivered directly into your inbox in one concise little email. So I'll have all the links for you there as well. And since I'm hosting this webinar today, I said I'd do some self-promotion. I'll be hosting, as always, our N-Central office hours. It'll be on Tuesday, the 6th of May, which is the next N-Central office hours. And in May's office hours, I'm going to be joined by our Vice President of Product Management here at Enable, Darren Niller, who's going to do a recap on the N-Central roadmap presentation that we hosted at Empower as well. So if you weren't able to attend Empower, and you would like to see what's coming up with N-Central, and I could assure you there's lots of great new features on the actual roadmap, very exciting times, and you're not already registered for the N-Central office hours, again, scan the QR code. That will bring you to the registration page. You can sign up there and we'll see you next Tuesday as well. And speaking of Empower, Empower may just be in the rearview mirror, but we're already looking ahead to Empower 2026. And right now you can avail of early bird pricing. So if you register for this before May 10th, you'll be able to get this registration for $199. And if you wait until after May 10th, but register before September 30th, you'll also be able to avail of a discounted price here again. It's going to be on from the 13th to the 15th of April in the Omni Fort Lauderdale, which is a brand new hotel. They haven't even finished it just yet, but if you go on to Google Maps, you can see it mid-construction at the moment. And as someone who attended Empower recently, it's a fantastic event. If you've never attended before, I strongly recommend you do so. If you've attended our Empowers, maybe in Europe in the past, you can't say that we haven't given you enough time and attention here to register and get in early and plan your trip over to the States next year as well. All right, that's it for the promotions. Let's get down to business. We're here to talk about APIs. I'm sure some of you will have some experience of APIs, but maybe other people on the session today maybe have never utilized APIs in the past. I'd have to admit, I haven't done much with APIs prior to joining the Head Nerd team, and obviously part of my role dictates that I had to get more into the weeds in it. I've done a huge amount of it and understand it, and it can really enhance your using of N-central and other solutions by leveraging APIs as well. So if you're kind of unfamiliar with an API basically allows communication of information between different software applications. So if you pull out your phone and you look up the weather app on your phone, that's using APIs. If you send someone money via PayPal or Revolut, for example, that's using APIs. Even if you're tracking your kids using the Find My Phone on your iPhone, for example, that's using APIs as such. So we use APIs on a day-to-day basis, sometimes unbeknownst to us. And using APIs really can enhance how we leverage the different software applications that we use as well. So more specifically, when we talk about N-central APIs, it's important to note that N-central has both what we call SOAP and REST APIs. Now, we're going to focus on SOAP APIs, REST APIs today. If you want to learn more about SOAP APIs, we still support them. They're what I would call kind of in legacy mode as such, so we're not actively developing them, we're not actively enhancing them or adding to them as such as well, but you can find information, and if you go to Enable You, you'll find a whole bootcamp around N-central SOAP APIs as well. But today we're going to focus on N-central's REST APIs. These started to be added into N-central in 2023.9. The current release of N-central is obviously 2025.2. And all the releases since 2023.9, we've added different functions or resources in terms of API functionality as well. So depending on what version of N-central you're on, you mightn't see all the functionality that we talk about today as well. So it's important that you upgrade your N-central server if you're self-hosted as well. So what is a REST API, you ask? REST stands for Representational State Transfer Application Programming Interface. Bit of a mouthful, so you can see why we call it REST APIs. And it's an architectural style designed for networked applications. So REST APIs enable communication between different software systems over the internet by using standard HTTP methods. So these are things like GET, where you're actually retrieving information out of the API, but not modifying the data. Post, you're actually creating a new resource and submitting new data into the APIs to be processed. We have put, which updated an existing resource on the server. So you could actually replace the current representation of that resource with new data provided. So for example, you might use a put when it comes to updating the warranty information on the device. So if it's not valid or not represented within your N-central environment, you could actually use a put to actually write a value into that field in N-central as well. Delete, as you can probably guess, will actually remove the resource from the actual device itself. And patch obviously modifies. So you might have something created already. Maybe it's a maintenance window, and maybe you want to adjust maybe the timings on the maintenance window, what the maintenance window does. Then you're patching that API resource. REST APIs are widely used for creating web services that can be consumed easily by various clients as well. So in terms of interacting with the REST APIs and N-central, what type of account should you use? The simple answer to this is an API-only user account. It's important when you create an API-only user account that you disable MFA, as MFA is not supported on APIs. But by making this account an API-only user account, the user account will never have access to the N-central UI as well. So it'll only be able to query using an exchange of JSON web tokens. It's always important with anything in N-central to use good naming conventions. So when you are creating API only user accounts, include that in the name so it's clear to see for anyone else that's looking at particularly why this account may not have MFA enabled on it as well. Give it the least amount of privileges required for what you intend to do. Now, in our examples today, as we go through the masterclass, we will probably just use default roles and default access groups that are configured within our environment as such. But if you are creating an API user for a specific reason, for example, look at the actual permissions that account will actually need, look at the access it will need, and limit to that as such as well. So you can get very granular with the permissions on that an account actually needs to do certain functionality in N-central. And I strongly recommend, if you are using API users for specific actions, limit what they can do within the environment as such as well. And very importantly as well, generate the JSON web token and use that to authenticate rather than using the username and password. So if you create an API-only user account, you can obviously use username and password to authenticate. Depending on the password policies in your N-central server, the password may expire, and then you will have to renew the password. And then obviously you will have to update that password within any scripts or software applications that you use username and password in. If you use the JSON web token, you will still have to refresh the password once the password expires, but you do not need to refresh the JSON web token as such. So that's important. It just means that you have to change less when it comes to managing your systems on a month-to-month basis as well. So let's take a look at what we can do with these APIs in N-central. And when we look at N-central, we're looking at N-central from the perspective of N-central 2025.2. I know not everyone might be on the latest version of N-central, but if you're running 24.6 or later, then you should have access to 16 resources or categories within your N-central environment for the APIs. And within these categories or resources, then there's actually 70 sub-resources or subcategories or sub-functions available to you. These include things like active issues, where you can retrieve active issues from customers or sites via the APIs. You have custom properties, which always is a popular example of using APIs. So if you want to pull a list of custom properties or pull a list of a single custom property for multiple devices, for example, or maybe you want to update custom properties, you can leverage APIs for that. You have device-related APIs, whether that is, returning a list of devices for a customer, for example. You might want to see what tasks are associated with devices. You might want to see what filters are available for devices, such they're all possible using APIs as well. You have maintenance windows APIs. So if you want to see a list of maintenance windows, modify maintenance windows, or actually remove maintenance windows, you can do so using APIs as well. And also you have the organizational units. So this is where you can get your org unit, customer site information out of your N-central server as well. So there's many different functions available to you when it comes to using the APIs in N-central. What I would remind you though, guys, is that in order to utilize all the different resources that we see here, you do need to have the more recent versions of N-central as well. We continuously add new resources and we frequently update the actual existing resources. So even some of the resources that we might look at today may be available in your instance of N-central, but might not have the same functionality or capability that you're seeing on my side as well. So again, It's a simple thing to check your N-Central instance. You can go into N-Central, go down to help, click on version information. You'll see what version of N-Central you're using as well. Now, N-Central APIs also leverage Swagger. What is Swagger? I might hear you say. Swagger is an open source framework that allows developers to design, document, and consume REST APIs. It provides a set of tools to create interactive documentation for APIs, making it easier for developers to understand how to use and interact with the API endpoints or resources that are available as well. Swagger simplifies API development by facilitating the creation of comprehensive, well-structured, and easily understandable API documentation. And we'll see examples of this as we go through our masterclass as well today. So what we're going to look at first of all, guys, is how we would create an API-owned user account and how we would actually authenticate with the REST APIs in Swagger. So we're going to jump into our N-Central environment. And I'm going to come down to my configuration. Sorry, not configuration, administration, user management, and users. And I'm going to click on create user. Now, typically I would create my API user at the service organization level. So we're going to call this MC, and then we're going to call it API PK. We give it a login name. We're not actually going to use this login name, but we'll just keep the naming convention that is available in N-Central. So it's in the form of an email address. It doesn't have to be an active email address. So I'm just going to pop anything in here. And then I do need to set a password on this as well. So I'm going to set this password. Remember, we're not going to use the username and password. We're going to use the JSON Web Token. I'm then going to assign the rules that I need. In this case, I'm going to choose default administrator rule. And then under access groups, I'm going to assign the access that this API user needs as well. So in this case, I'm just going to choose my entire service organization. Again, a reminder, you can be more granular here if you have, or you're creating API users for specific requirements as well. Now, under our user details tab, we can click on user information and we can check MFA is not required. And under API access, we can go ahead and click on API only user. We can go ahead and save that there. So we've now created our API only user account. The next thing we need to do is we need to generate the JSON Web Token, and that's what we're going to use to authenticate as well. So we'll pop back here and we'll find our API PK. Was it API MC PK? What did I call it? What did I call it? You would think I would have API. Did I actually say this? I think I'm losing it, guys. Yeah, actually didn't save. Great user. Call this API. Was it MCPK? And then we'll go API.mcpk at n-able.com. Password. Assign roles. We'll choose the default administrator role. Nothing like trying something twice. Access groups. SSO. User details. User information disable. API access turned on. We call it API MCPK. Let's go ahead. Save. Go and filter. API. API MCPK. This is our friend here. So what we're going to do once we've created a user, we're then going to click into the user, and under API access, we're going to generate the JSON Web Token. Now, this is the only time you see this particular token as such. So it's important that you copy this token and you document it in your password documentation solution. If you click off this without copying this token, you just have to regenerate it. Or if you lose this token and you don't have a record of it and you need to get access to it again, you'll have to generate a new one as well. So we can go ahead and we can copy that token as well. So once I have the token copied, the next thing we need to do is access our APIs. And you can do this by clicking the My Links tab in your N-Central server and click on API Explorer. Or if you go to your N-Central URL /API Explorer, that will also bring you into the Swagger interface. And here you can see all the different resources that are available. And if you click on each heading, you will see the sub resources that are available in each one as well. And these have the different HTTP calls, whether it's a put, get, post, delete, or patch as well. We're going to click on the authorize button, and we're going to pop in our JSON Web Token that we've created. We'll click on authorize and close, and then we'll come down to our authentication. We'll click on our authenticate resource. We'll click on try it out, choose execute, and this gives us the response code that we need. We'll copy this from here. We can pop up to our authorize button, and we can paste that in and click on authorize, and we are now fully authorized against our N-Central environment. So we're now ready to actually make API calls in here as well. So some questions popping over here. So I'm using NCE REST APIs and Central REST API, export custom properties from multiple device recipe. Is it possible to feed this a list of device names from a CSV and have it return the custom property value for these devices? So James, yes, that certainly would be possible. As such, you would use PowerShell, which we'll look at examples later on, but it'd just be a case of expanding the PowerShell script to feed in the device names, and then obviously query those device names and pull out that information as such as well. In the 90-day password reset limit for the API on user account, something that is going to be resolved, or is it not considered a bug? So James, it's not considered a bug at the moment. It is by design as such. So I suppose as part of the N-Central modernization project, all areas of N-Central are getting a refresh, and this in time will include users and how users are created. So this may be addressed utilizing the user interaction, your enable SSO user accounts that you might use, or API only user accounts using enable SSO that would address this as well. But it's not something that's going to be addressed. It's not considered a bug at the moment. Sean says, on the select device endpoint, I noticed parameter called select query. Is there documentation on what is expected to be put in there, like an SQL query? I could not find relevant documentation. Sean, stay tuned. We'll cover that in a few moments as well. I show you exactly how to use that. There's a little knack to using the select functionality. Sean says, it was my first name. API. Oh yeah. So Sean was telling me what I actually, how I managed to lose my account. So Trey says, we found the API token must be reset every 90 days. So the token trade doesn't need to be reset as such. The password on the account, if it expires every 90 days, needs to be reset. So you can leave the token as is. You just need to reset the password as well. Preeta is asking about the developer portal. Yes, Preeta will come on to that in a little while as well. And then Carla says, updating the password for the API user, does that invalidate the JSON Web Token? No, it doesn't. So when the password has to be changed on the API user, it doesn't impact the JSON Web Token. The only thing that impacts the JSON Web Token is when you need to obviously click onto it and reset it as such. If the password is not reset on the account, the JSON Web Token will be temporarily inactive or ineligible to work. So you do need to ensure that the password in the account is adjusted when it expires, but it doesn't affect the JSON Web Token. Yeah, so Trey, yeah, so I think I just explained as I was talking, you typed that in there. So hopefully that is clarified that as well. Okay. So next, let's talk about using the API Explorer to get more information out of your N-Central server. And first of all, I suppose when using N-Central APIs, this is what an API call looks like. This is an example of a GET call. So GET is the HTTP method here. The path is the API. The resource or the category that we're using is devices. The sub-resource is a scheduled task. And in this particular case, the device that we're going to query, it does require an input parameter. In this case, it's a device ID. So when you're using N-Central APIs, there are different IDs that are required, or different parameters that are required for different calls as such. And this a lot of the time can be found by querying other APIs, but also can be found within the UI of your N-Central environment as well. So if you look for the device ID, for example, you can actually hover over the name of a device in your N-Central instance, and you can see the device ID. This is not the appliance ID. They are two different things. You need the device ID as such. This is also stored on a log file on your endpoint as well. And I've actually created a little automation scripts that you can actually pull the device ID and store it into a custom property through N-Central. So I'll be on the cookbook very soon as well. The customer IDs are available by going to administration customers, and the customer ID is what we see in the access code. So if we jump back into N-Central here, and we click on our customers, when we say customer ID, we mean access code. And if we are on a customer level, for our Celtic Cider, for example, when we click on sites, we see the access code again is the site ID there as well. If you're using, and it should be an SOID, not an SQID, apologies for the typo. But the default SOID on hosted environments is 50, and if you're using on-prem, it's always 100. A role ID, if you are doing one of the role categories or resources, is under administration roles, and you can hover over that to preview that role ID. And the task ID can be found by going to device details, monitoring, and hover over the task name to see that task ID. In job status, you hover over the job name to view the URL preview, and you'll see the task ID in there. Or if you go configuration, schedule tasks, add and delete, and hover over the name, you can view it using that as well. When it comes to using N-Central APIs, there are some limits and best practices to be aware of as such. First of all, N-Central will limit the number of responses to manage stability within your N-Central environment. If the limit is reached, you will get an error 429. You can see here on the right-hand side the different response codes depending on the API query. Hopefully, we're always looking for 200 or 201. That means the API call has been successful. But if you see something like 401, for example, it might be authentication failure. 403 or 404 might be not found. So if you're trying to do an API call, maybe using a script where maybe the function is not available within your instance of N-Central, you'd get something like a 404. And obviously, if we said you have too many requests, the rate limit is hit, you'll get that 429 error as well. Depending on what you're querying, and obviously depending on your N-Central instance, let's say you have a large deployment and you want to retrieve a list of all the devices within your N-Central environment, that's going to yield an extremely high number of results. So pagination is also in place, and it's limited to 50 results per page, and the default responses start at 1 page as well. So if you run a query and you don't get as many results as you're expecting, for example, likelihood is that there's some form of pagination taking place, and you can adjust some steps to take that as well. So let's actually look at using Swagger, and let's look at actually making some of these calls and address some of the questions that have popped up so far. So we're going to first of all come into our N-Central instance. I'm already authorized, so I don't need to do that. And if I want to get devices, I'm going to come down to my devices resources, and I'm just going to go to my API devices. I can click and try this out. Now you can see there's numerous different parameters available in here, but none of them are actually required. In this particular case, if we look at using the org unit devices query, there is a required field here. So any field that has a requirement will be noted within the Swagger UI as well. So I see all the options available to me. Right now, I'm not going to click on anything. If I want to come down and get an understanding what the results are going to look like before I ever execute something, I can come and look at the sample response codes here as well. So I can see if it's successful, what it look like, if I get a bad result, if it's forbidden, for example, etc. We're going to go ahead and click on execute. And here now you can see all the different devices and all the different details on the device, including things like the long name, the device class, Is it a probe? The OS ID, the SO ID, the SO name, etc., etc., etc. This can be downloaded into a JSON file, or you can copy and paste from here. So if you want to pop this into a clipboard, for example, you can do so as well. Now, this obviously is showing us all the information for all the devices across my entire estate. As the question is earlier on, what if I just wanted to get my particular device, for example? I want to get the details on my laptop as such. So I'm going to actually use the select functionality here. So I'm going to choose long name. So this is case sensitive. So whatever you see in the result below, you need to ensure that it matches here. So I'm going to use long name with a lowercase l and a capital N. And then the secret of using the select feature is double equals to. So I don't know how many times I put in equals to and I get an error in this when I try and do these calls, but it's a double equals to is required here as such. So if I put in P Kelly, and again, this is case sensitive, I'm going to pop in my device name or my device long name. I can click on execute now. And what you'll notice here as well, the curl actually updates with the query that we're pulling in here as well. So you can see the select functionality equals long name. And if we pop down here, then you can see the device details. So this is my result here. This is my device ID. This is my device class. And I can see, the page size, the total counts, the total items in here as well. So this is an example of how you can see all this information as such. Now, if we were to remove this query again, and if I execute this again, when we look at this now, if I scroll down to the end, again, all the devices are displayed. But you can see here that we're only showing 50 of 57. So if you need to remove that pagination, for example, you can use a -1 in the page size. And then when I execute this now, we'll go and look at the results. I will see all the additional results in here. And I can see 57 of 57 items are being displayed here as well. If we want to look at something like the customers, for example, we can come into the organization unit. And again, we can click on our get customers. Again, we can click and try it out. This time around, I might want to sort customers by customer name. So I can come down to my sample script, take a copy of that, pop that up into my sort by field and choose maybe sort in ascending. And this time when I execute it now, it'll show me my cybersecurity customer first, then my FM research, then my Joe's break fix, then my Celtic cider. So you can see how it can sort this information in ascending or descending order for you based on field names as well. So lots of questions coming in there. Can we use the API in a schedule to reset the password so it won't expire? Trey, you can't do that. You can't edit the username's password. So it's not possible as such. What about the user ID? Create a ticket for user ID. Not sure. Or can we only create an API ticket for a customer? I need a bit more information on that one, Josh. I'm not clear what you're asking there. Simon says, will there be a set timeout for 429 result code in the header, say 30 seconds before attempting a new request? I don't know, Simon, to be honest. I don't think there is. I just think once the rate limit hits, it just hits and you get the error code, and then you can obviously change query and go again. Corey says, what about greater than or less than in a contains? At the moment, depending on the function, Corey, you can see not all functions have the same thing, but there is a select option in here. But there's not. I think there's something with the select where you can use an expression to get a contains value as well, but it's a bit more complicated. But if you look at API select functionality calls, I'm sure you can do it that way as well. So Serge says, is it possible all devices, for example, where SQL Server 2019 is installed? So what you would do in that particular case, Serge, is if you look at your devices query, there is a filter ID. So if you have a device filters that already gets to your server SQL, you can get that filter ID and use that as part of your device API call to get those devices as well. So that's certainly possible. Sean says double equals to okay, thanks. Annette says, does it work with umlets? If the omelet is displayed in the output, then it should work with it as well. It is case sensitive and it matches it like for like. I haven't tested with an omelet, Annette, but I don't see why it wouldn't, as long as you're matching what's in there. Is it possible to have multiple selections? Say I want to show all devices that are in an organization that have specific device class. So remember, you're using the API Explorer to kind of, start building out your scripts as such. When it comes to like combining multiple functions together, you can certainly do that, but you're going to do that within the format of a script. So you're going to build one function around one API call and then use that information in another function to get that information as well. So that's certainly possible as well. Create an API and run scheduled task against device. Is it only query task on a device? No, you can run a device, Eric. Actually, we're going to look at that next. Any plans to create an official Power Automate connector? Swagger, blah, 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 blah. Ryan, I don't know. I have not heard of anything just yet, so I can't say yay or nay to that. Is there any hard limit on the rate limit on it? Depends on the specs load of the server. It depends. I don't know, Carlos, off the top of my head. I would have to query that one for you. There are some limits, but I don't know if it's for all functions or certain functions or depending on the server metrics as well. I think we're going to just pause it there for a second because we do have only so much time, guys, today. So we'll try and get through as much of the questions as possible as well. So next, we're going to look at how you would actually perform an action using the N-Central. In this particular case, we're going to use N-Central run a task and what's involved in that. This is something that you can script, and a lot of third-party applications that integrate your N-Central server would, would leverage something like this to trigger automated actions from maybe a ticketing solution or another application that you might use in-house as well. So we're going to jump back into our APIs. And what we're going to do, first of all, is I'm actually going to get my device ID again. So we're just going to do so long name equals to pkelly 365. No, it's not 365 hyphen LT4. Given my password, my email address. So here I have my device. I'm going to grab my device ID now here. And what we're going to do is we're going to come down to our scheduled tasks, and we're going to post the scheduled tasks. So we're actually going to write a scheduled task into our N-Central instance. So I'm going to try it out. I'm going to give this a name. So we'll call this masterclass test 1. And we're going to pop in our device ID. Now I need a bit more information in here as well. So I need the customer ID. So if I pop back up here, I can see my customer ID is not here. So I'll just jump in here and I'll click on my Celtic Cider Company under my customers. And it is 133. So we're going to pop that information in here as well. Now, you can either run a script, which would be a PowerShell script or a batch file, for example, or you can run an AMP using this method, but you do need to type in automation policy. I wish they made this AMP, but they didn't. And again, it is case sensitive. So it's all one word, but it's a capital A and a capital P. I'm going to pop into my N-Central instance and I'm going to come down to configuration and I'm going to go to schedule tasks and go to my script and software repository. And I can look at in here what I want to run as well. So I might choose UAC, for example, and I can see here the UAC, Windows UAC setting status. Now, these are all system, so stock services. If you want to use a stock service as a scheduled task through the API, you do need to clone it, as I've done here already, and that allows you to turn on or enable it through an API. So not all tasks are enabled out of the box. You do have to enable them in here, and then you copy the repository ID, and we're going to use that in here as well. So right now it's the item ID. That's the repository ID. So we have a name, we have the item that we want to run, we have an automation policy, we have the customer ID, we have the device ID. If there were parameters in here, I would obviously have to include those parameters, but I don't have any parameters to run this. So we can just go ahead now and remove the parameters and choose execute. We get a response code of 201 and it generates a tasks ID, which we can then use to query this and query the success of this task. But if we pop into our End Central environment, I can click on my add and delete, and under direct support, you can see masterclass test 1 is in progress here. So it instantly creates it and instantly runs that against the device. And I can click on the task and you can see the status of the task here now, and it's giving me the output here as well. So not only can you actually trigger these tasks, but these tasks trigger almost immediately when you query them via the API as well. So next, we're going to look at how you would actually take these APIs and do more with them as such. So right now we looked at every individual function, and when we look at these functions in Swagger, we're really just seeing what we can do, what information is available for it. It's a really way of kind of understanding how the API works and what information I can pull out of the APIs. But as we've had the questions, can I do A and B when it comes to the APIs? That's where kind of scripting comes in and using your coding language of choice. So I dabble more in PowerShell than anything else. So this is the example I'm using, but you can use other scripting languages to query these APIs as well. So we're going to jump into our End Central instance. Some of these scripts are already available in the cookbook and the recipes in the developer portal. In this particular case, I need to first of all authenticate if I wasn't authenticated already with my End Central instance. So we have an exchange JSON for access token scripts that you can use. You pop in the URL of your End Central server and your JSON web token. You run that and that authenticates with you. This is something you could actually include at the start of your script if you're running multiple actions as such. Next up is the End Central REST API export. So in this particular case, I've chosen an example where I want to export custom device properties from multiple devices within my End Central instance. So you have the customer ID, which is by default 50. And in my case, I have the property name that I want to export is the End Central device ID. This is a custom property that I created. But as you can see here, I'm not just using the custom property export option to generate this information. I'm first of all generating a function around the customers. I'm then generating a function around the customer, the devices. I'm then generating a function around the customer devices based on the customer ID. And then I'm generating a function call around the End Central device custom properties. If you're looking at this going, whoa, you lost me, Paul. This is where generative AI comes really useful, guys. So leverage your generative AI tools to help you build out these scripts if you don't have this experience as well. And then you can start to see, I'm going to retrieve the customers and the devices. And then once we have the customers and devices, I'm going to start querying the actual custom properties and building it into a table as such. In my particular case, I've chosen to include things like the customer name, the site name, the device name, the property type, the property ID, and the value as well. I'm also exporting this to a CSV file, which I can find on my local device, and I can actually display it on screen as well. So if I go ahead and run this, it's going to run this particular query using the functionality. Now we're already authenticated using this one. And here you can see all the different customers, the different sites, the device names, the device IDs, the property information and such as well. What this looks like if we open up the actual file itself, if I can find it. Find my C drive, and I think it's under temp. And here we have our device custom properties CSV, which is created at 1543. And here you can see how this outputs as such. So this is a real good example of how you can start leveraging the APIs to get this information. Now I use this device API or this device ID as such, just so we can kind of collaborate that the information is the same. This is using the script I mentioned earlier that actually pulls this information from the local device and writes it to this custom property. But also because we're using the API key, I can also see the device information. And here you can see all the ones that's lined up. There's a few devices on the list here that have been offline for a prolonged period of time where it obviously hasn't populated those fields just yet as well. So if you want to learn more about using REST APIs with PowerShell, if you want some of these sample scripts, you can go to the Automation Cookbook and type in NC REST API, and you'll find a huge amount of those available for you to download, tweak, modify, and adjust to meet your requirements as well. So the last thing we're going to talk about today is the Enable Developer Portal. And this is a brand new area and feature available to all our partners that will make it hopefully easier for you to interact with our APIs as well. So you can access the developer portal by going to developer.n-able.com. And in here, you will have, getting started information on N-Central, Inside RMM, Cove, and Take Control APIs. There's the full API references available in here. There's step-by-step guides and API recipes that you can leverage. And there's also a change log that keeps you up to date with all the latest information that's added into the developer portal as well. So if we go to jump back into our web browser, and I go to developer.n-able.com. Here we can see the developer portal, and here up the top you see the different enabled products that currently are supported within the developer portal as well. Now we're interested in N-Central today because it's an N-Central masterclass, so we're going to click on our N-Central, and here you can see all the different guides to getting started with the N-Central APIs as such. So all the information that you need to understand and leverage these APIs is available here. So you have your quick start guide, how you actually go ahead and create an API only user, for example, and there's little videos that walk you through these processes as well. What I want to focus on today, though, is a couple of things. First of all, if we go to our API reference, we see all the different API resources that are available. Now, this is under the assumption that you're running the latest version of N-Central as such. But if I want to obtain an access token, for example, I can pop in my JSON web token in here. I can pop in my N-Central server username. I can try it out, and that can generate the token for me. So I can go ahead and copy that token. I then can go and perform another action. So if I want to go down to my devices, for example, and I want to retrieve a list of devices in here, I can click on this. I can pop in my bearer token. You'll be prompted here if these are not already populated. You can pop in your N-Central server. I can click and try it out, and I can get a response code to see that it is failed. I should probably pop the new token in here as such. Might have just expired. So we'll go ahead and try it out again. And now you can see I get a response code of 200, and you can see all the different devices are available here. But again, just like using the Swagger interface, I have the same parameter options available to me when I'm using the developer portal as well. So if I want to go and say long name equals to Pete Kelly -LT4, for example, I can go ahead and now click and try it out. I get a response of 200, and this time I'm just seeing the information that pertains to this particular query as well. So all the options that you have within the Swagger interface can be used in here, but because of the way this works, makes it a little easier for you to start tying the information together and actually seeing the output and the requests as well. What's really cool about this, though, is if you know and if you confirm that the APIs do what you need to do, and you want to build a script, for example, you can actually ask the generative AI within the developer portal to build that script for you. So I could say, create a PowerShell script that exports all devices with their device ID, customer and site name, and device class, for example. So I can go ahead and hit enter, and we can see that our little generative AI will go ahead and think, and then all of a sudden it'll start generate this code for us as well. So we can go ahead and we can copy that code. And if we have PowerShell open, for example, we can click on a new PowerShell tab, pop that information in here. We can pop in the information we need to access. In this case, it's nerds training.n-able.com. And then if I get my JSON web token, copy that, pop that in here. And then we can go ahead and run this as such. And then we find that we have an error, as is always the case with generative AI, but we can start to work through what the issues may be. We can figure out what's going on here. It might just be down to the authentication, but you can start to leverage and test this by using the generative AI within the developer portal as well. You'll notice as well, when you use the developer portal, it does support multiple languages. So it has Python, Ruby, as well as PowerShell. So you can click if you want to obviously do something in Python rather than PowerShell. You can adjust that in here as well. Also in the developer portal, we have the recipes, and here you will see all different items available to you. So we have created an central API access token, export all devices, export custom property for multiple devices, for example. And here you can open these recipes to see the code that I mentioned earlier as well. So this might not do exactly what you want to do, but it can start you on the way as such. So you can see the information here, start to leverage that and use that within your instance of N-central as well. Now, if you're familiar with the Enable Automation Cookbook, you might have noticed recently that when you actually click on a download link now or an article in the cookbook, it's going to bring you to the developer portal and into the recipes in the developer portal as such. So we're going to move away from using the Automation Cookbook as a landing page in the future, and everything will be done and maintained within the developer portal as well. And if you are kind of checking in and using the developer portal on a regular basis, you can click on the changelog tab in here, and this will give you all the latest updates. So if there's new scripts added, for example, or there's changes added, for example, all that information is going to be documented in here as well. Okay, so that's getting started with N-central APIs, guys. I know we have had a huge amount of questions come in, so I'm going to try and pick up where I left off. Apologies if I've missed anyone's question, and please feel free to copy and post it again if I don't get to it. Or alternatively, if you do run out of time today, just drop me an email at paul.kelly@n-able.com as well. Where would I find an example on Swagger of select? I tried looking before and couldn't find anything re-expressions. I would potentially use a generative AI tool, Corey, for that maybe. There is some documentation online available as well on Swagger. I can talk to you afterwards on that one as well. How can we revoke a user access token? I created an access token for my account and didn't create an API user account first. How can I revoke a user access token? So yeah, what you shouldn't be doing is under administration and users, if I have, let's say Julio here, for example, we shouldn't be using API access tokens in here as such. So if you have, you can just choose to generate a new one, and that'll reset it as such as well. And if I come down to my one here, for example, you might, if it's enabled already, I would just generate a new one and close out of it and not know it as such. Otherwise, you're going to have to actually delete the user and recreate it as well. Is there a specific recommendation for using N-Central with Power Automate? Do we need to stick to creating custom connectors? Yes, Morgan. So there's no specific recommendations around N-Central and Power Automate. At the moment, we don't have a built custom connector for that just yet. That may be something that comes down the line as we develop and enhance N-Central as well. Daniel says, on running that, you had the ID listed in the UI as a repository ID, but listed as the item ID for the API key. How often, if ever, are these keys changed? They might end up breaking changes. I would say, I'm not quite sure, Daniel, what we're talking about there, but what I would say is what it's called in N-Central and what's called in the API are not always the same as such. So just watch out when you are using parameters there. Christoph says, will there be a recording provided afterwards? So Christoph, what usually happens to the masterclass is once the recording is processed, it's usually sent out. It's usually about a week later that you will get a link to a recording of the session as well. They just make sure that I didn't say anything I shouldn't have before we post it out to everyone as well. It won't be available on YouTube. You do get a personal link for it, Christoph. Brett says, so if a workstation has a serial number, but you cannot get that via API, you need to place that in a custom property, then pull that information. Brett, you can pull the serial number via the N-Central APIs as such. You do need to be on 24.6 or newer. But if you look under devices, there is the get life cycle information, and that retrieves the warranty expiry date, the serial number, excuse me. I'm confusing myself here. So yes, if the serial number is not pulled by the device, you would have to store it into a custom property. I'm not sure why we don't include that as such. That's a good point. I'll query that for you a bit as well. Harold said, is there a way to access the limits tab under custom organization to pull the pro limits license? Said that's not supported, Harold, in the APIs, nor have I seen it on the immediate roadmap. So it won't be there in the near future. Is there a listing somewhere where we can list all API items available for export? Not sure, John, what that question pertains to. You obviously can see what APIs are available on your N-Central instance by going to your URL/API-Explorer, and you'll see what's available to you there. Simon says, I haven't found any documentation populate query with contains like, so I'm supposing we're supposed to create filters and obtain necessary information by querying the API with a filter ID. Yes, Simon, you can use a filter ID and do that. Alternatively, obviously, you can do that through PowerShell commands as well, where you match information when you query certain API function calls as well. And it says, thank you for the webinar. I feel a lot more confident, definitely less overwhelmed with the whole API stuff. That's great to hear in it. And if you have any follow-up questions, more than welcome to drop me an email as well. Okay, so I think we are nearly at the top of the hour, guys. Normally when we do webinars and boot camps, we have a kind of rate my session, but actually I am going to pull up 2 poll questions today on a completely unrelated note, since I have a little captive audience here to get a bit of feedback. So thank you for your time and attendance today, guys. And I really would appreciate if you just take 30 seconds of your day now to answer the following 2 questions I'm going to post to you here as such as well. So the first question I want to ask you is, does N-Central Unified Endpoint Management as a product name suggest an RMM solution or MSP specific solution to you? So yes, it does suggest an RMM or MSP specific solution to you, or no. So Unified Endpoint Management. Let me launch that on screen. And it was straight into the comments with her response, but I would prefer if you could just click on the poll just there. So we have around about 100 people still left in the session as such, and the votes are coming in. Sounds like marketing gobbledygook. Well, I'm not going to say who created this poll, Nathan. But the results are in. We're over 60%, guys. Let's keep it going. Should be an easy enough one to answer. Again, does N-Central Unified Endpoint Management as a product name suggest that it is an RMM or MSP specific solution to you? And I'm going to give you 10 more seconds. If you're still sitting on the fence, maybe it's going to be no. We're up to 70% voted. So final call, guys. Haven't voted, please do so now. Okay. Go ahead and close that poll. So actually, poll results, if you're interested, 75% of you felt that it does reflect an RMM or MSP specific solution as well. We'll move on to the final question, guys. Do you believe that endpoint management and unified endpoint management are the same thing? Yes, I do believe that, or no, I believe they're different. Corey says, feels like I'm training the AI. Very good. Preacher says, it's just RMM, but only if you think about it for a bit. A bit of a smush of RMM, MDM, etc. Okay, so this one, a little bit more interesting. So again, do you believe that endpoint management and unified endpoint management are the same thing? James, that's comment of the week. If only I could get a Paul Kelly AI. I don't know how much good it would be to you, James, but I appreciate the sentiment. Okay, guys, 10 more seconds and we will leave it off there. Again, 66% of you voted. Final call. If you haven't voted, please do so now. And we're closing it off right now. And in case 47 or 43% agree that it does or are the same thing, and actually 57% of ye feel that they are not the same thing as well. So I'm not sure if these are the results that the team behind these polls are looking for, but thank you for providing your feedback and answering these polls honestly as well. And with that, guys, I do want to thank you for your time and attendance on this masterclass today. We will be repeating this masterclass in late May and again in late June. So if you just want another refresher, then you're more than welcome to rejoin us again. Or if you have anyone within your organization that you would feel that would benefit by attending this masterclass, they can do so by registering for those events on May and June as well. A reminder, you will be sent a full recording of this in the coming weeks. I don't control that, but we will send it out to you so you can rewatch it to your heart's content as well. Thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of your day. I hope the sun is shining where you are in the world. It is certainly shining here for a change, so I'm going to try and enjoy as much as possible as I can. We'll see you on a bootcamp or hopefully the N Central office hours next week, so we'll talk to you soon. Bye for now.